Welcome to My Business Matters, the Michigan Chamber podcast.
Welcome to My Business Matters, the podcast of the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. This is where we talk to the leaders about the issues shaping our state, our policy, and our future. I'm your host, Jim Holcomb. I'm the president and CEO of the Michigan Chamber. Today's episode is part of our special series, Michigan's Future in Focus. We talk with influential voices running to shape Michigan's future, those from who are seeking to be our next governor or representing communities across our state and the legislature. I'm honored today to be talking this time around with Mike Cox. He's the founder of the Mike Cox Law Firm. He's our former state attorney general, and right now he's a 2026 candidate running to be Michigan's next governor. Mike, welcome.
Jimmy, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, you don't let any moss grow under you. You're always on the move doing something. You've got a long and distinguished career in law and governance and public policy, public service. Why governor? What's motivating this decision?
Like so many Michigan parents, I've suffered the loss of 3 of my 4 children leaving the state, right? Yeah. Not the I immigration, but the E immigration. Mm-hmm. And so that's the backdrop. But I have to tell you, Mississippi is the reason I'm running for governor of Michigan. Yeah. So I have 2 granddaughters in Mississippi, and they get a better education in Mississippi than the kids in my neighborhood, literally. I have a number of employees over time who work for me, live near me, and I saw their kids and the progress they made versus my grandkids. And I grew up in a time and place when the idea that kids in Mississippi would get a better education than kids here in Michigan was a joke, right? Yeah. And really what's happened to our state, the state of education, where Mississippi 12 years ago was 49th in 4th grade reading. Now they're 9th. We were 27th or 8th. That was kind of mediocre 12 years ago. Now we're 48th. Some people say 44th, but we're tied. 4 of us are at 44. Yeah. In my mind, there's only 2 behind us. That's 48.
Either way, it's not good.
It's horrible. And, you can't build a state. You can't build a culture. And families can't build and move and grow if their state isn't helping provide, the basics, public safety, schools, and opportunity. And we're not providing any of that. And I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and so that's what I'm doing. Yeah,
well, we appreciate it. We're always glad, helpful, and grateful for anyone willing to lean in. You have an established track record, so I think it makes it credible.
Well, thank you.
It certainly is. It's what I hear about if I'm leaving church or having dinner with friends or doing whatever. People are talking about education, so I think you're hitting a hot button. What are the first steps? How do we start to make a change?
It's hard in the sense that we're going to have to fight the powers that be, but it's really simple in what we need to do. We don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yep.
In Mississippi, what did they do in 2012, 2013? They pushed through a reader readiness law. It's simple as this. We add more school choice. Number 2, we require all K through 3rd grade teachers to teach phonics. Mm-hmm. Number 3, if kids are struggling in kindergarten or 1st grade, we get a tutor. And quite frankly, if teachers are struggling, we get them a coach. Mm-hmm. And then we measure, right? And then we grade every school. So parents, grandparents, and every taxpayer knows how their local school system is doing. And I have to tell you, and so much of all of us were motivated by what things that happened in our family. Mm-hmm. My youngest granddaughter, Savannah, is now in 10th grade, and she was severely autistic. Mm-hmm. And in Mississippi, they told my daughter she's not going to 4th grade if she can't read. Mm-hmm. They told her that in kindergarten, and they provided services, tutoring, and a young lady who would run. I would be at the mall with her when she was 5 years old. She was a runner, mm-hmm. and she wouldn't communicate with people. But in the course of 4 years in the Mississippi education system, they taught that girl how to read at a grade level, and now she's completely mainstream, and she's going to be able to get a job, and and she's always going to be different. But Mississippi made the difference.
Yeah. How do we change the focus? Is it a money thing? Is it a structural thing? It seems like far too often we focus on the infrastructure of the school system and not the outcome for the kids.
Right.
and that we need to make sure, a lot of times we talk about career pathways and we talk about secondary education or higher education, but that foundation is set in the elementary years.
100%. So for too long, we've been worried about the adults and not the kids. For too long, we've been worried about the system and not the students. And that's what we need to do, which is let's design school. Let's focus on what works for kids. Here's the reality. We have school systems out there which now, if a kid doesn't turn in his or her homework assignment, it used to be they got a failing grade. They now get a 50%. And why is that, Jim? Because we want to get them the magical 70% and promote them along. Yep. Social promotion by another name. We have to stop all that garbage, that nonsense, and focus on fundamentals. And if we get the fundamentals of K through third grade, kids being able to learn to read, they can then read to learn everything else. And then we can start talking about how we, by the time they're in junior high, we create tracks that recognize the trades, that recognize advanced manufacturing certificates. My parents left Ireland, left the UK for more opportunity here. But back in Ireland, UK, they're smart on how they diversify their workforce. By the time kids get to junior high age, there's 3 tracks. You can go traditional, what we would call college prep. You can go towards skilled trades or certification in which would help in manufacturing and in interims, non-college, 4-year college sort of situations. And then the third piece is a traditional high school diploma. And if the kid's in there, they're not locked in there. They get the ability to move back and forth. But what it does is recognize that not every kid's going to go get a 4-year degree. We have too many kids walking around this state with a mortgage payment from their college education, but they don't have a house.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it is about a career pathway. It's making sure every kid has the resources they need to succeed. And whether that's transparency about how schools are achieving success and working with their families, or what are job outlooks. I was at a meeting today. They were talking about we're short in the state at least 5,000 nurses, and we need to make sure that kids know those are great jobs. It's a good paying job. Yeah. How do we get in that the high school years and then even into higher ed? How do we start getting that matched up? Because it seems like what you're saying makes sense. That make sure everybody has information, that we start tracking, but there's flexibility, because every kid shouldn't follow one path or the other. And I think we've seen the damage of devaluing the trades for a long time.
Absolutely. My old man was a carpenter. So I grew up, he swung a hammer, and the first big chunk of my life until I was 10, he wore overalls every day. But you know what? He could support a family. Yep. He and my mom was a maid, and they could support a family. They could live in a good neighborhood, safe streets, good schools, and they knew each and every one of their kid could get ahead. And so what do? Well, we have to identify firm goals, and we have to execute, and we have to grade along the way. So I want to get back to the nursing thing, because it also speaks to deregulation. But I think if we track what I call the UK model, we will start to offer so we get kids to read. And then we get them to the middle grades area, and we provide them the opportunity to explore, as you indicated, the things that they're interested in, and provide that and set the structure up. For instance, right now, about 15% of the ISDs across the state are seriously in the serious CTE training, where you can get certificates to prepare for workforce in a non-4-year degree situation. If we stop and think about that, after 70 years of preaching 4-year college education, only 32% of Michiganders do that. So we have to start tailoring for the other 68%. Yep. And so if we do some of these things that I'm talking about, turn the ship and recognize where we're at, and be strong, have guardrails and goals, we absolutely can do it. That it should not be 15%. It should be 100% of the school districts are engaged in recognizing the value of trades, the value of advanced manufacturing, especially as we're going to face the onslaught of AI coming.
Yeah, I think we have to face the challenges we have, but one path doesn't mean it has to be the exclusion of another. There are certain people in certain careers that absolutely need that 4-year degree in advanced training, and there are other ones that don't. What we really want is just give everybody a chance to prosper.
Absolutely, and it starts with the ability to read.
Yeah.
in third grade.
Yeah, you can't do math if you can't read. Well, one of the good byproducts that we see in other states that have strong education systems is a strong economy.
Right.
What does 4 years of a Mike Cox administration look like on the economy? Where would you focus, and what would success look like at the end of 4 years? You said we did good work.
Well, if anyone goes to my website, Mike Cox 2026, really pretty easy, MikeCox 2026, you're going to find a simple prescription, because I say simple because we have to set clear goals that everyone understands and deliver on them. So, Jim, what would I do? Number one, I would follow the track of successful states, right? Mm-hmm. By that, I mean, we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
We can look across the country. We can see what works, right? So for me, when I look across the country and I see states that don't have an income tax, a personal income tax, they are prospering. So I'm talking about Florida, Tennessee, Texas, but I'm also talking about Wyoming, New Hampshire, South Dakota. Those states are booming because they don't, especially in an increasingly mobile world, mm-hmm. they attract capital and they attract people. If you look at crypto mining and crypto mining space and the big investors there, they all want to go to no income tax states. Mm-hmm. If you look at what's going on with the NFL, we're in the playoffs right now, and we're going to be talking about free agents and coaches. Coaches will think about, do I want to go to the Miami Dolphins or the New York Giants, in part based on taxes,
absolutely.
Right? But what does it mean for any listener out there? So I have a business. I've scaled it back to run for governor. At mm-hmm. one point, I had 25 employees, right? Oh. And so I'm taxed at my personal income tax at the corporate level, right, mm-hmm. by the state on my business, the Mike Cox Law Firm. And so when you eliminate the income tax, it's not about benefiting me, but when you do that, small business owners, and most of them are S corps, yep. and pay the same way, they get the ability to do what? A restaurant owner gets to buy a new stove or add a couple employees or decide I'm going to train another manager and invest and open another restaurant. And so you give small business, the greatest job creator in America, the opportunity to grow. You give them oxygen. What else do you do? Think about a young couple, 25, 26, 28, 30, thinking about trying to get that first house. If they don't have to pay the income tax, 4.25%, we think, well, it's not huge, but it is. If you relieve them of that burden for 1, 2, 3 years, that gives them the nest egg in order to buy into Michigan and become part of the community forevermore. Mm-hmm. And obviously for seniors on a fixed income, if they do get income, relieves the burden there. It puts money in everyone's pocket, but as importantly, it tells the rest of America we're open for business. Yeah. Related to that, and hopefully I'm not running too long.
No, you're good.
Related to that is, look, I grew up in a union household. My dad's a union carpenter, 4 uncles and aunts, retired UAW. I have my brother-in-law, and they moved the shift for the afternoon shift. He builds trucks, the F-150 trucks in Dearborn Truck, where the president was the other day. UAW, right? So I'm union to the core. That's part of my being, and I've been in 2 unions. But I recognize this. Big job creators and businesses all across the country are afraid of unionized workforces. Mm-hmm. And so how do you attract them? Well, you allow worker freedom. We also call it right to work. Okay, what does right to work do? It simply says that a union member doesn't have to join a union in order to have the job that he or she has. So that's important for the idea of American freedom and liberty to have that. But more importantly, it's a job creator, because there are businesses all across the world and the country that will look at the Midwest, and if you're right to work and they're a fast-growing business and they're not unionized and they tend to be higher paying, it's the fastest-growing sectors, they don't want to come to a state that looks overly regulated. And so my thing is, let's not discriminate against any job. And the third piece to that is the secret tax of overregulation, right? And what's the secret tax of overregulation? Well, when you overregulate, you add costs, direct costs to businesses, but you also drive businesses away. Let's talk about a couple quick examples. If someone wanted to build a factory in Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, they need to be located in the Midwest. Look, we have 10,000 Great Lakes. We have 4 Great Lakes. We're on an international border. We have this great natural beauty. Be attractive for workforces, right? But it takes forever to get a wetlands permit, right? And so where it takes a year here, it only takes 6 weeks, 2 months in Ohio, Indiana. And that time costs the business money, it costs them uncertainty, and so they just write us right off the list. And it goes on and on. If you talk to anyone who owns a restaurant, to get a liquor license in Florida takes 2 weeks. Here, ungodly amount of months. And those are some, it's laughable, it's comical, but for small businessmen and women who want to open that restaurant, need a liquor license, that can be a death knell. And cumulatively, that sends a huge message that we're not open for business. We do those three things: attack, deregulate, or we could call it DOGE, that fits, deregulate, eliminate the income tax, and couple it with worker freedom, right to work. We're going to have a recipe that's going to make us a job attractor instead of a job repellent.
Yeah, and I think it's not only who are we attracting, it's what starts here in Michigan. You talked earlier, we have so many small businesses in the state. They drive a big portion of our economy. But we want those entrepreneurs who believe in free enterprise to be in their basement, their kitchen, their garage, wherever they're inventing the next great thing, and build it here and develop it here in Michigan. I worry about not only the people that don't come here, but the people that never start, the people that look at the hurdle and say, it's just not worth it. I'm not even going to try.
Think about Henry Ford in his garage off the alley on Bagley in Detroit, starting off tinkering around with the horseless carriage. Mm-hmm. No one was there complaining about an environmental spec or, whether it was a wetland in his backyard and whatever, right? Yeah. It's like we need environmental protection. We need to protect the public, but that does not have to equal driving business away. But in Michigan, for far too long, those two things have meant the same thing. To protect people, we have to drive away business. That's not true.
Yeah, I don't know too many people who have a job without a business behind them.
Absolutely not. And in my mind, I hate the credit. I'm a Republican. I hate the credit some Democrats with good ideas, but there are some great ideas floating out there to attract business that Democrats have actually started. There's in 2023, and I read about this because he was considered by Kamala Harris to be a vice presidential timber, was the Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania, right? He's a Democrat. And so what was one thing he did to help deregulate and attract business? I think the program is called Payback. Mm-hmm. And so if you're trying to get a real estate license, or if you're trying to get a wetland permit, any part of state government where you need a permit or a license, you pay a fee, and they promise a certain amount of time. If you haven't received the decision, you get your money back. And what does that do, Jim? It makes government entities say, okay, we're going to make the decision anywhere. Let's be faster, more fluid, more flexible. And in my administration, I would have that idea. And actually, I can see a day where we can actually track applications online. If I can track my Uber, why can't I track my license application?
Yeah, it seems like technology that exists today should make it easier for government to provide the services and do it in a streamlined way. We kind of joke a little bit about, you're talking about, there are Democrats with good idea, but that's a big part of what I think people are looking at now. There's a huge split, and politics is a little dysfunctional now. Right. Under your administration, how do you bring people together? How do you make sure you're looking at the best and brightest ideas and not a partisan agenda?
Well, I've lived my whole life. I have certain ideas, conservative Republican ideas, but I've lived my whole life accomplishing goals and winning things, quite frankly. And you can do that easier when you have a bigger team. By that I mean, when I was in the Marine Corps, the people I led, they didn't care whether I was a Republican or they were a Democrat. Right? Yeah. We were Marines, right? We had a mission and a goal to accomplish. When I was a homicide prosecutor for 13 years in Detroit, the victims' families that I was fighting for, the jurors, the judge, they didn't care whether it was a Democrat or Republican, right? It was about getting the right thing done. And in fact, one of the ironies of this race is I was a career civil servant, which means I was civil service protected. So the fact that I was a vocal Republican, I couldn't be punished at work. And I was the one Republican promoted by a Democrat prosecutor to become the homicide unit, the most sensitive part of the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. And ironically, it was Mayor Duggan when he was a prosecutor.
See, everybody can work together.
Absolutely. But it is a reality. So I've spent the past 15 years building a business. And one of the things my business did is we fought for and we won a huge lawsuit against the University of Michigan.
Yep.
And on behalf of 1,078 sexual assault survivors. And we had a team of 63 lawyers. I was the only non-plaintiff attorney, right? I had friends who kind of started the case. And so I had to build a coalition. I was the lead appointed attorney by the court. We built a coalition about a goal, getting the right thing accomplished for our clients. And, there was a lot of crazy meetings, but those folks weren't on my side of the political aisle by any means, but it was about getting the thing done. And I think when you have competency, when you accomplish things, people gel around that. You go to Mississippi, fourth grade reading is not a partisan issue, right? And once you show some competence, people rally around that, and you get to keep the good ideas going.
Yeah, you've talked a lot about some of the legal issues there, and you've built your career obviously as an attorney. You've led the state as the Attorney General. As governor, you would have the ability to appoint judges.
Right.
What do you look for in a good judge? What should a governor utilize at their disposal when they're making those appointments?
Well, years ago, when I was in the recorder's court prosecuting murders, rapes, and robberies, there were some judges who would try and get in between you and justice, right? Mm-hmm. And they would try to influence the juror. So for me, from that time forward, I was all about rule of law judges. I just want judges literally to be the umpires, and let the two attorneys fight it out, right? And let the jury decide. So really, for 30 years, my perspective has been, in our three, with separation of powers, we need judges to respect the rule of law and respect the proper role of the governor, proper role of the legislature. And the legislature is one making the rules, and the judges should respect that.
Yep. No, I think that's what a lot of people, you need that certainty. I know on the business side, we're just looking for certainty in a lot of the cases now. It's more about emotion and political rhetoric than it is about the certainty of the law and what the words on the page are.
100%. Look, I've had to interact as a business owner with state government, and I've had two different times. And it was just like, just tell me what the rule is, right? and I may not like it, but I'll live with it, and I'll figure out a way to make money and keep my employees employed. Yeah. And I think that's how most businessmen and women look at it. They just want certainty so they can plan, invest, and grow.
Yeah. Certainly, you're laying out a broad vision. You have a lot of thoughts on what's going to make Michigan, more prosperous in the future, but you can't do it alone. It takes a cabinet. It takes, there's a lot of good people in government. I think bureaucrats get a bad name sometimes. There are a lot of good people just trying to do a good job, but they're looking for leadership and they need leadership. How do you fill out a cabinet? What are the type of people you're looking for, and how much do you empower them to do something, and how much it is you have to really put your stamp on every decision?
Well, since the time, at 19, I had 16 Marines under me, right? And I didn't know whatever from Shinola, what the whatever is, right?
Oh, yeah.
About leadership before I joined the Marines. But the Marines, they would teach you the 14 Marine leadership principles. And number one was set the example, right? Number two is know your job. Others were, identify a goal for the team and clearly communicate and build a team. And those primary rules have stayed with me through my whole professional career. So when I went to the AG's office, and I was the first Republican elected in 48 years, right? And so there was 565 lawyers and support staff then. Only 5 could I appoint. So I had to work with people hired by Jennifer Granholm and Frank Kelly, who had a different political vision than I did, but we had to get things done for the people. And so I went in there and identified goals. I set the example, and we built teams. We reorganized. And in fact, Jim, during my time, I think you were in the legislature for part of that time. The legislature didn't always give us the money we wanted. We didn't have a vote. It was the legislature and the governor, right? And so during my time in office, I reduced the size of the staff by 21%. So I actually, and while our caseload was going up 10%. So I'm proud that we did more with less, but I did that by building a leadership team, which was primarily Democrats, who responded to what we needed to do. So what did I do? I rewarded merit, right? And I rewarded flexibility. So when I look for in a cabinet would be flexibility, because there's a lot of changes, right? And there may be a path we think is the right path right now, but we may need to change it along the way. So you need flexibility. And I'm going to skip over the obvious things like hard work and things like that. But flexibility. Number two, the ability to make a decision and weather it, okay? I tell people on the road, as a homicide prosecutor, I was all alone. As the AG, I was all alone. I didn't have the benefit of fellow legislators standing there with me. And as governor or as a cabinet member, those folks would have to be able to weather criticism. Number three, you're going to have to build your own team within your agency. And you do that by establishing clear goals and expectations. And then you empower people, you delegate to them to have them take pride in running their area and being the best at it. And because with 50,000 employees, you're going to need a strong team around you. When I went into the AG's office, I'm very, very proud of this. If you go, I think they're still there.
Yeah.
I think General Nessel left it there. There is the Attorney General Mike Cox training room. That's and I was all about training, but also leadership and management training, because I went in and there was 300 plus lawyers, but none of them were trained as leaders. And so we created our own leadership training. I'm jumping around a little bit, but it's really the 4 or 5 key principles I learned as a Marine, which is you need someone who's flexible, someone who understands achieving the goal, who can build a team. You're able to delegate and then give them the ability to act. Those I think successful administrations win and create success when they follow those kinds of principles.
Yeah, no, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. It is about leadership. It's about training. It's about mentoring. There are good people that want to do a good job, and they just need somebody to point them in the right direction. Support them, hold them accountable, but had a clear vision so they know what they're shooting for.
Yeah, and I'm very proud that Bill Schutte, who followed me, largely kept my team together, right? And even General Nessel, it's been 12, 13, 14 years. A lot of the people I developed are still leaders in the office, that whether they support her politics or not, but on the day-to-day business of the office, those are folks who we trained as leaders, and I'm proud that they took it upon themselves and they've developed even more.
Yeah, and that's what you want. You just want good people supported. We've covered a lot of ground today, and you've laid out a vision, and if people want to learn more, they go to Mike Cox 2026. But what I'm interested in, what's not on that website? What's something unique about you, something inherent to you that helps you connect with voters that somebody may not get on a website, but you want to talk about today?
It's something I saw growing up. My parents are immigrants, and my dad was a carpenter, and my mom was a maid, and especially in my early years, we were always on the economic edge, precipice. There was always worries about layoffs. I had uncles and aunts laid off, and it was a struggle. And I will never forget those days. They were very tense, and so I understood public policy, the outcomes as it impacts, I hate to say little people, but regular, ordinary people who are struggling to get by. And I've tried to, I'll never forget those memories of the stress of my parents worrying about jobs and prices. And I carry that with me today, and I think it helps keep me grounded when I talk with people.
Yeah, I think that's why you connect. Well, Mike, we can't thank you enough for being here today. Time has flown by. A special thanks to you for showing up today and kind of sharing your vision and plans as you're running to be Michigan's next governor. It's part of our special series, Our Conversation Day. This is Michigan's Future in Focus. Thanks to all of you for listening. Subscribe and like our podcast for easy notifications. And until next time, for more information about Michigan policy and politics, you can go to michamber.com.